Welcome to What God Can Do Ministries. I just want to share a thought with you from 1 Corinthians 14, and it's in verse 18. Paul says this: I thank my God I speak with tongues more than you all. Yet in the church I had rather speak 5 words with my understanding, that by my voice I might teach others also, than 10,000 words in an unknown tongue. Brethren, be not children in understanding, howbeit in malice be you children, but in understanding be men. One of the greatest things we need to understand, and I've just come back from a mission in Africa, in Nigeria, just outside Lagos I was, and I went there to consecrate a bishop. One of the things that I found all over the place is there were people living in abject poverty. There is poverty around. But one of the things that horrified me is churches were building big camps in the road between Ibadan and Lagos. Enormous camps they were building. And I thought, why are they building those camps? It's to get thousands of people who can ill afford it to travel there to have big conventions. And they were spending a lot of money, but that money could better be spent helping the people in need, because some of them can't afford 3 meals a day, and they're really bamboozled into giving their money to build these monstrosities, as I call them, because they're not meeting the needs of people. Build hospitals by all means. Build things that are going to bless people and help people, schools, raise people up with education. But for goodness sake, Christians should not spend their money just building monstrous buildings to crowd people in when the people haven't got homes, haven't got decent sanitation, and need the basics of life to survive. And I looked and I began to wonder why it was that people who claimed to be apostles could drive fancy cars, buy matching Rolls Royces, have 3 jet planes, and live like a king with $10,000 suits. And then there's Afro-Americans fly in and they charge $60,000 for one meeting, where they go and they give a load of rubbish, telling everyone they can be rich and impoverishing the poor. And it's the poor who give out of what they've got. And it's so wrong. We're here to help the poor. You know, when the disciples in Acts 2 sat down and people sold their lands and their homes because a persecution was coming, and God arranged that they sold their lands and their homes, they came and laid it at the apostles' feet. And they distributed that money as every man had need, and there was none in want. In other words, the apostles didn't take the money for themselves to build the biggest palace. They didn't take the money for themselves to build the greatest thing they had. They gave to God, and they gave to those that had need, because they realized we're here with a gospel to the poor. Not a gospel of give me some money and then God will bless you, and they never get anything. Not a gospel where they say, hey, you know, we've got to lift up an apostle, we've got to lift up a man. When Jesus Christ came, he didn't carry the bag, Judas did, and he was a thief. And you've got to understand, we need true apostolic. When a man's a leader, he should be available for everyone. Jesus walked amongst the multitude. He didn't hide himself away. He was available. He didn't have a protocol team to protect him. He didn't need bodyguards. He walked amongst the people. Hey, and if anyone came up to oppose him, he just said who he was. And you remember the guards that were coming to capture him, in Gethsemane. They fell back as, immediately when he revealed himself. He said, I've got 10,000 angels to look after me. And yet I find there are people who, when called apostles, no, they're not, but they say, there's a protocol team, 6 months to get an appointment. One man I heard of in England, who comes from Africa, he put someone off for 12 months, wouldn't see him because he didn't want to speak to him. That isn't Christianity. Jesus was available to the multitude. He walked among them. People touched him. The disciples said, everyone was pressing against him when the woman with an issue of blood reached through and touched the hem of his garment. Children came and they were comfortable in his presence. They delighted in him. He wasn't scary. He wasn't aloof. He was totally man and totally God, and he loved. And such was his love and his care for people that often they came and they surrounded the house where he was with Mary and Martha. And, one time he was sitting down preaching and people couldn't get with their sick friend there, so they tore the roof off the house just to let their sick friend down. Do understand, we need people who are available to the natural man. One of the greatest experiences I had was with my dear friend who's gone to be with the Lord now, Archbishop Benson Idahosa. And he was a great man of God. He was a man of faith. And one of the things that so impressed me was when he walked out of the church, he would stop and talk to anyone. The common person from the church would come up, and sometimes there were 20,000, 30,000 there, but he cared for the individuals. He was a man of God. And I sat there with him on several occasions in his office, and there'd be 200 or 300 people, just normal people from the church, waiting outside, and he'd see each one, he'd pray with them, and very often he'd put his hand in his pocket and give them money after he'd prayed with them. He cared for the individual, and anyone could approach him. I've been to meetings all over the world. We traveled the world together. We went to all the continents in the world, and he was the same man available. Jesus Christ wants men who are available. We are called to be the servants of the people, not to lord it over the people. We're not called to be the mighty one. We're called to care for the least. And let us have that spirit, and let us be like Paul. I'd rather have 5 words of wisdom, easy to be understood, so people can come and feel comfortable. Spurgeon, that great preacher, said that if you preach a sermon and a 5-year-old cannot understand it, you're preaching above people's heads. The gospel is simple. Let us not leave the simplicity that's in Christ. Let us come back to reveal, hey, our Jesus, he is risen, he's alive. He comes to heal the sick, deliver the captive. It's a gospel of goodness. And the men of God who are truly called of God are available for you. God bless you. God keep you.